As you've heard, my name is Mareri. Mareri with R, not malaria. I know some of you confused. But if you see me and you remember the sickness malaria, then I have no problem. I'll just take it. I don't know now where to start from because I've worked for quite some time. How many of you were born in 1990? 1990. Don't be shy. That's when I started working. So you can imagine how long I've worked. So from 1990 up to date, I've also worked in the Ministry of Lands. I've worked in the Ministry of Housing. I've worked in the county government as a minister. Sometimes I'm called a minister, so don't worry, who is this minister? I'm the one. And then I've worked in the NMS. If you know Major Badi, there's a time I was also appointed by the president. By the way, President Uhuru appointed me as one of the people in the NMS. And we assisted the Nairobi County. Then I went back again to the Department of Urban Development. That's where I am. I am working as a deputy director in charge of urban development. And in a short while, I'm going to exit from the service. That means I am aged. I'm not young. I have a few months. And my director general was speaking here, Madam Mangira, when I was a first year doing my master's. She had already completed her master's. In fact, she left and then I joined. So my senior has worked for quite a long time and I've learned a lot from her. Now, I am representing Madam Lillian, who is my boss, but she was not able to be here with you because she's feeling unwell. She came last night, I think because of the flight changes. Maybe she got a lot of cold and she became unwell. She had some flu, but she said she's determined, as she rests, she'll come and join us in the course of the day, maybe when the weather has improved. And as a department, our work is about urban development. And we work hand in hand with the Department of Fiscal Planning and the county governments. So I am basically not going to give you anything that you don't know about urbanization in Kenya. You know so much about urbanization. In 1983-84, I had completed my A-levels and I was called to Nyeri High School. I don't know how many of you know Nyeri High. Those days it was called Nyeri Boys High School. And the first time I came to Nairobi was around 1983, 84. When I was going to high school, I passed through Simaman, Roysambu, Chucha, Thika. Then there was in Nyeri. In fact, when you could pass through Roysambu and the Simaman, there were no buildings. I mean, it was empty land. Chucha was a small thing, a small market. And Thika had not expanded the way it has. And if you go there now, what you see is totally different. Those days in the 80s, if somebody could give you land in Simaman, you could think he's crazy. Or in Kitengela, because they were bushes. And now what is happening is totally different. Urbanization has cropped in. And most of that land was being used for agriculture. So in my presentation, I've just put it in as an overview, problem statement, challenges. We are going to highlight them. And I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'll take about 20 minutes and we are done. With urbanization, we have a demand, demand for food increases. As our towns grow, demand for food does what? Increases. Challenging existing food systems to provide sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food. Because of urbanization, we'll have that challenge. There is a conversion of agricultural land into residential and commercial spaces. What you are seeing in Chucha, what you are seeing in Tika is a demand for houses. So the land which was being used for agriculture now is basically being used for residential purposes. Most of you, some of you have even bought land there, Kawasukari and all those places, and they are built. And they initially, those were farmlands. And with urbanization, there is a reduction in the capacity of local food production. So the land starts to diminish because the size of land that was being used for agriculture is reducing. Basically, what it is telling us, even the indigenous kind of foods that we were planting and using as old people used to, is disappearing because there is no enough space to do that agriculture. So nowadays, we are eating more of processed foods, which even come from outside, from other countries, the spaghettis and the rest, which are already processed, and that's what we are eating because we don't seem to have enough land to plant some of these foodstuffs. So land use planning in urban areas has become fragmented, basically for the purpose of doing a 50 by 100 to do a residential house, a quarter. Even in Karen, where people used to have 5 acres, 10 acres, nowadays in Karen, even the subdivision has gone down to about 1/4 an acre. And yet those zones were highly restricted. But it is because of the demand for housing. The population in Nairobi has gone so high that the only thing that we need is skyscrapers and all those flats. So we need space, and we have eaten the space for agriculture. Hence, there's a reduced space for agricultural activities and local food production. And then long working hours to meet rising living costs has led to a notable decline in time spent on home cooking. So, we now want the things which are ready-made. So we have gone for easy way of getting the foods. This has even resulted to weaknesses in our health because the kind of food we are eating are not very nutritious. In fact, the other day when my son was graduating, what they were demanding were very interesting foods. You call them pizzas, yeah? What do you call them? Those things which look like chapatis, but they are not chapatis. That's one of the things that you could not miss in the menu. So I had to make sure that there is some pizza. And I'm told pizza is a mix of, you can have chicken and you can have what? You can have mushroom, you can have, those are the kind of things they want. They want mushroom. They want rice. Very soft kind of meals. But again, we're missing enough land to do some of these crops. And it's because we are basically building all over the place. Arable land, which was very potential for agriculture, is now being used for urbanization. You go to Ngong, you go to Kiserian. Remember in the 80s and the 70s what was in Ngong? You go there now, Upper Matasia, go to Kikuyu. When we were doing our urban studio, we did Kikuyu. It was like an agricultural area. It was just, most of the land was agricultural. But now I remember where we had delineated for residential and what is existing now, you will get worried. We have now used almost 80% of the land that we had planned for agriculture has now been taken up for urbanization. So urban expansion, of course, you have said reduces agricultural land, limiting local food production, and increasing dependence on imports, which I've already said. We are now importing even rice from China. Food insecurity, urban population faces unequal access to affordable and nutritious food, increasing the malnutrition and the poverty. In fact, research is still being done. I don't know whether this research being done or it is true. Our parents used to get about 7, 8, like us we are 8 children from one father or mother. Nowadays, our generation, if you get 4, watu wanakuchekelea ukipata 4 5 kama mimi niko na wengi. So, but there is a generation coming. They are either getting 1 or 2 or none. But do you know why they're not getting or none? It's because they are not eating the right foods to get the right quality. You know? Hii chakula mnakula hii processed, it will make you weak, by the way. So the ladies, the men, I'm telling you, the Gen Zs and the Alphas and the Xs, what we eat will tell you the quality of what you get. Senior? So if we are not going to eat the right foods, we are going to lose our generation. Hata ukienda hospitali, by the way, even when they go to the hospital, they are told, what do you eat? You are even encouraged what to eat. They tell you go and eat the indigenous foods. Ndio upate watoto hata 3 4. Hii maneno ya kupata mtoto mmoja, you are risking, my friends. It's because of the food we eat. I think we are missing food. We are running into the processed food that comes in cans, and you are very proud that you are getting food from China, but you are going to lose this generation. We want more people. We want this world to be occupied. Oh yeah, and multiply. And because of urbanization, urban food systems are increasingly affected by climate change, with extreme weather disrupting supply chains and production. And we know that with urbanization, there is always the change of the climate. It affects the rainfall patterns, and it affects the climate of given areas. So if we, at this rate, if we continue, I don't know whether we're going to restrict our urban sprawl. I don't know what we are going to do, because we are really expanding and we are going to be affected in a short while. There is also what we call environmental degradation. And you know this. You can see now we are having floods. We are having challenges. We are depleting the forest. The other day, I'm told Karura people were doing, I don't know what they are calling, regeneration. I don't know what even though the minister was trying to convince us, but when I passed there, I was scared because they had brought down so many trees in the name of regeneration. But maybe because people made a noise, we are suspecting somebody wanted to take the land. So we are even affecting the climate change, because we are bringing down the trees, we are bringing down the forests, because we want to settle there. We want to settle there at the expense of our food production. All towns in Kenya have expanded. The other day, when maybe my colleague will talk about the Kenya Urban Support Program came as a big project funding the municipalities, the next phase we are going into, all other counties had to promote their small towns into municipalities in the name of getting some funding. So what they have done, they have increased the boundaries of these towns, meaning they want to bring more agricultural land into the boundary of urbanization so that they can eat up into the urban land. And that will affect the acreage of land that we are going to use for agricultural purposes. And then let me say something briefly about the principles of urban food systems. You know, as long as urbanization is going on, there will be an effect on the principles of urban food systems. One, sustainability. That means minimize environmental impacts by reducing waste, conserving resources, and promoting local food production to minimize the ecological footprint. Two, equity. Systems should be inclusive and accessible, ensuring access to nutritious food for all, addressing food insecurity and promoting social justice. And we should have systems that can withstand external shocks as climate change, economic crisis, or supply chain disruptions, ensuring food security and stability for urban populations. And finally, we should have what we call innovations, leveraging new technologies, practices, and ideas to enhance efficiency, sustainability, and food security in urban environments. I know what you have seen, people doing urban agriculture. I went someplace, watu wanapanda sukuma kwa magunia na wanaiweka kwa faranda, right? And then I don't know whether some of you have been to, I know some of you have been to China. And when you look at the green, I don't know how many of you have been to, anyway, a few of you have been to China. And the greenhouses. Have you seen what they have done with the greenhouses? And what I've enjoyed in China is their vegetables. Those guys, even if they are 1 or 2 billion, they will never go hungry because they have changed the way they do their agriculture. They are using greenhouse technology. You look like this for miles, you only see greenhouses. And there's nothing inside there other than their vegetables and their foods. And they use a very small space. So in Kenya, we are still using the old technology ya kulima kwa makashamba yako kadogo kadogo na tunaendelea kukata, and as we are marrying and adding the other wives, you know, lazima tukate hiyo shamba, si ndio? Kama kwetu Kisii ukikuja sisi hatuna shamba. That's why you see us everywhere. Tukikuja kwenu msitunyang'anye shamba, mtuachie tununue. We are ready to give you money and then you give us land. Yeah. Because in our place, the whole place is a city, you know. If you come to Kisii, you look like it is a city, but it's a forest city. Tumepanda miti, tumekata shamba, imeisha. So, what Kenyans have to change now is the way in which we are going to get enough food for ourselves. Otherwise, tutakuwa na njaa. The problem with Kenya is that within a small time, we have a lot of food, and within a very short time, we have no food. Unga inaenda 250 inarudi chini mpaka 120. We are not very static. I mean, we are up and down. We are having food shortage all the time. So, what can we do? What are some of the recommendations on what we can do? That's what I'm saying. Promote urban agriculture and vertical farming. And the vertical farming, I said, is a new technologies of farming. That's why I talked about the greenhouse. And there is some farming I've seen where people I think I've seen it in, is it Korogocho or where? I think there's some youths who are trying to introduce that kind of system of getting some foodstuffs. Wanawekelea chakula kwa some makeshift, and then they drain water there, and then they plant their vegetables. Na wanaweka a temporal greenhouse. And in modern buildings, in some places, I've seen it in China, I've seen it in India. There is a way you do an in-house structure, and then you use some technology to plant greens within that building. That's kind of vertical agriculture we're talking about, to save on space. Strengthen food supply chain infrastructure. Of course, we must have systems on how to keep our food, how to preserve our food. Our stores, we don't have enough. We have a lot of food now, but farmers are crying because the prices have gone down. And now, in a short while, we shall have a dry season, and during that dry season, I know people will be crying there's not enough food because we didn't keep when we had the glut supply. Then we need to develop policies supporting sustainable practices, of course, which are environmental friendly and climate resilient. Then we need to enhance community engagement and education on food systems. So in conclusion, I want to say that urbanization presents both challenges and opportunities for food systems. The challenge is tunakula shamba. The opportunity is we have a market for our food, in that the population will also depend on food. So we also need food because people who stay in Sokomujinga near Nairobi, they do a lot of business because of Nairobi. This population, ile cabbage yote na sukuma ile inakuja Nairobi na viazi inatoka Nyandarua. It's an advantage because the city is just next by. And then adopt integrated approaches and fostering innovation are key to building resilient, sustainable, and equitable urban food systems. So, as Kenyans, as I conclude, as Kenyans, we have an opportunity to decide whether we need to restrict our urban expansion or we continue the way we are. Do we continue the way we are? Or do we change our urban systems? Those of you who have gone to other countries, they have what we call the eco-villages. People are living in one village, and then they are doing farming the rest of the land. Why can't the people live in about 10 acres? They develop their homesteads there. Then, rather than subdividing the land, and then they use the rest of the land for agriculture. It's an uphill task for Kenyans. We want the land so much that we cannot be able to live together. So that the land has become uneconomical. But whatever land that is remaining for now, what can we really do? Are we going to continue with this subdivision forever? Because we are developing policies which are not working. These policies are not working. To cut a shamba to only 3-4 acres. Even the national land policy tried to implement the same, but I think it has not worked. We are still subdividing the way we want. Whether it is 4-5 acres, 2 acres, a half, a quarter. We are owning even 20 by 40. And a title comes out. At that rate, our land is going to diminish. We are going to be importers of food. Tutaanza kuleta hata sukuma kutoka Uganda. By the way, do you know where we get eggs? Mayai ya kukula unajua inatoka wapi? Inatoka Kampala, Uganda. And it is cheaper. By the time it reaches Kisii, it is cheaper than a farmer in Kisii who has a poultry farm. Yeah, everything is cheaper here. at this rate, we are going to import everything. Even milk, we don't have enough milk. We don't have, by the way, do you know tomatoes come from Ulungalunga in Tanzania, huko poda hii ya karibu hapa Kwale, city Kwale, yes. Inakuja all the way to Nairobi. We can't even manage to have enough land to plant tomatoes. Maana shamba imeisha. I don't know, moderator, whether you still have time. I am within time. You know the problem. Yeah, I can talk. One time I was in politics, so I can talk. When I see a crowd like this, I talk.
I think you are very exciting, and we are listening.
Okay. So, some of these challenges are real. When we say we are going to import even milk, it's real. And it's very unfortunate for Kenyan. So it's either we decide on how to utilize our land properly for urbanization and agriculture. These things will be competing, but we must decide for once, how do we want to use our land? The two must go together. Of course, we have to modernize. We must be modern. I mean, I'm an urban planner. I can't live in Nyamira. You know, I have to live in town. But again, I must get land where I'm going to get food to eat. So it is for us as planners to think beyond today and think about the future. I know we are thinking about ourselves because I've realized I've reached my peak. My graph is now going down. By the way, I'm now going down. My graph is going down. Even those of you who think you are 35 years, kuna wakati itafika graph yako itaenda chini. And your children, we must feed them. That's why sometimes I like the chances, you know, the way you are running around, because these loans we are taking now, when I'll be a kamzee, nyinyi ndio mutalipa, you know, it will be your time, that when I'll be old, you know. So we must plan now well so that the future will be good for you, so that those children will take good care of us. If we plan poorly now, our children are not going to take care of us. Si tulipanga vibaya, so na wao hatakuwa na kitu watatusaidia nayo. Hata tutakosa chakula. Kama sisi wale tunakulanga hii chakula ya kienyeji, hatutapata kitu. So it still depends on you and me, on the policies we are going to implement now for our urban expansion. By the way, the counties, we are doing plans. I remember when I was in the county, we were doing plans. But implementation is chaos. It's a problem. We are not strict to follow the plans that we do. We are very good on paper, but on the ground, it is becoming a problem. I see a lot of comments in our groups. I don't comment because sometimes it's very emotional. What we are doing as planners, we must think twice. Can we be very strict on our profession? Kwa nini sisi tunarusha, you know? By the way, do you know we do a very good course, by the way, you know, a planner is a very good person on the, I mean, as a profession. Do you see how architects behave and the engineers? They are very serious. Even engineers told you the road will pass here and it will take this corner and the gradient will be like this. You don't change. An architect will tell you this is how your building will look like. And a civil engineer will tell you the columns, the beams will run like this. You cannot change. But why is it in planning? Even a primary teacher will just atakusukuma mpaka you accept and change the plan. Plot ratio, building line. Na una approve nyumba, the boundary, ndio mtu ameweka the foundation. And this person is supposed to have a win. I mean, wanasema that wall is both the boundary and the security. And a planner who has done even masters, he may approve you in the Peter. So what are you telling us? And you know a road is here, and you want to build a building onto the road. Alafu baadaye tutakuja kupomoa, and the people curse you, and you wonder why you are becoming sick. It's because you are cursed. You did the wrong thing. People will curse you. When my building 4 or 5 floors comes down and you didn't advise me properly as a planner, then the building will come down and we shall curse you. So I think I don't want to bore you. I want to finish. And I think as planners, we have a long way to go. By the way, now we are lucky that we are having planners all over. During our time, we were very few. Planner Choice, you remember, we were very few. In our district, you are 1 or 2. Now we are in every county and we are very many. So make use of your professional background, your training. Try to be strict. Follow the profession very well. Please. Because some of us are now tumekuwa wazee, tutategemea nyinyi. We'll just be depending on you. And you are the only ones who are going to help us. I want to end there, and I want to wish you well as we proceed with this convention. Thank you.